You're watching After Dark Digest. Don't turn around.
It started with a blink. Not hers, her reflections. Alone in her apartment, Sarah was brushing her teeth like any other night. The mirror above the sink fogged faintly from the shower's heat. She wiped it, leaned closer, and that's when it happened. Her reflection blinked just a half second too late. She paused, toothbrush midair. Had she imagined it? She tested again, blinked deliberately. This time the reflection matched. She laughed it off, attributing it to being tired. But the next night, it blinked late again. And the night after that, it smiled when she didn't. She stopped looking in mirrors, started brushing her teeth in the dark. But reflections don't need glass. They can find you in windows or in the black screen of a TV. One night, she found the bathroom mirror shattered on the floor. The frame was perfectly intact, but the glass was inside on the bathroom mat. She replaced the mirror. This time, she stared at it for a full 5 minutes. Her reflection didn't blink at all. It just stared, eyes wide, grin spreading, until it tilted its head and raised its hand. Sarah didn't. The mirror version reached forward, pressing against the inside of the glass. Then the light above her flickered, and she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. The mirror was empty. Title: Voicemail from the Dead. Tyrell didn't believe in ghosts. That changed when his phone rang at 3:07 a.m. It was a voicemail. No number, no caller ID, just static. Then a voice. "Tyrell, don't come home." He jolted awake, heart pounding. It sounded like his mother, but she died in 2019. The next night, another message. "Not me, not safe, basement." He hadn't been in his family home in years, not since the fire, but the basement had always terrified him. Something about the cold, the silence. He played the third voicemail on speaker. This time it was a scream, raspy and familiar, followed by heavy breathing. Then one word: run. That day, Tyrell got a letter in the mail, forwarded from his old address. Inside was a house key, his old key, burnt at the edges. He drove to the remains of the house, but when he arrived, it wasn't burned. It was perfectly intact. Lights on, basement door open, and from the bottom of the stairs, his mother's voice called, "Tyrell, is that you?" He turned and ran. His phone buzzed once more. Voicemail: "You were smart, but I'm not the only one here." Story 2. Moving into an old home was Emma and Paul's dream, a quiet life in the country. But every night around 2:14 a.m., the basement light turned on. They tried timers, checked the wiring, even flipped the circuit breaker. But it kept happening. So Paul set up a motion-activated camera at the top of the stairs. The next morning, they checked the footage. The light flicked on by itself. Then something moved. From behind the boiler, a pale figure crawled out on all fours. It had no eyes, just skin stretched tightly across its face. It paused, turned toward the camera, and smiled. Then it crawled back into the shadows. That day, Paul went down with a flashlight. He never came back up. Emma called the police. They found the flashlight on the floor, still warm, but no sign of Paul. And the footage from that night? Just static, except one frame, just one, where the camera showed Paul staring back into the lens. But he didn't have eyes either. Title: Whispers from the Renter's Unit. 2B hadn't been rented in years, but the neighbors complained. Footsteps, laughter, whispers. The landlord, Mr. Gray, decided to inspect it himself. The door was locked but warm to the touch. He opened it. The apartment was fully furnished, not dusty, lived in, food on the table, a kettle steaming on the stove. He backed out slowly, but the door slammed behind him. The whispers started immediately. Finally, he came in. Now we can stay. He tried the door, locked, tried the windows, bricked over. In the mirror by the door, his reflection grinned, but his own face stayed still. He's still in there, they say. Every now and then, someone hears a knock from inside 2B, but no one answers. Let's turn the page, but not the lights. I work night security at a mid-range hotel off the interstate. Nothing fancy, mostly truckers and road trippers. The weirdest thing I'd seen in 5 years was someone microwaving socks. Until last Tuesday. Room 311 was booked under a fake name. No ID, paid in cash. Normal enough, except for one thing. They never checked out. After checkout time passed, we knocked. No answer. So I used my master key and went in. The room was cold, like unnaturally cold. The bed was untouched, and the only thing out of place was an old-school tape recorder sitting on the desk. It was already playing when I walked in. I hit rewind and pressed play. Static. Then a woman's voice. Calm. Software. Whispering, "If you're hearing this, I'm already gone. Do not stay in this room. Leave now." He listens. Through the walls. Through the tape. Don't rewind again. Naturally, I rewound it again. This time it wasn't static. It was breathing. Fast, shallow, panicked. Then knocking, loud and desperate, on the recording. Then I heard my own name. "Evan, he's behind you." I froze. The room was still empty, but the recorder kept playing. Only now it was repeating the sound of my footsteps from earlier. But there were more steps. A second set, perfectly matched with mine, half a beat behind. I dropped the recorder, slammed the door, and ran downstairs. The room is locked now. Management won't speak about it. The reservation is wiped from our system. But every night at 3:11 a.m. I still hear footsteps upstairs, and the sound of rewinding. Let's turn the page. When I was 12, I found a box in my mom's closet labeled, "Do not open." Naturally, I opened it. Inside were old Polaroids, all of me, every birthday, every holiday. But something was wrong. In every photo, there was a tall woman in the background, pale, dark eyes, dressed in black, always watching, always closer each year. I never noticed her before. That night I asked my mom. She got quiet, then said, "You shouldn't have seen those. She's not part of your life anymore." I pressed her for answers. She said the woman was my first mother, before the adoption. Only, I was never told I was adopted. Then the dreams started. Every night the woman stood at the foot of my bed, not moving, just waiting. Her mouth never moved, but I'd hear her say, "You're mine. She stole you." One night I woke up and found a photo under my pillow, a new one. Me, asleep in bed, and the woman standing beside me, smiling. I showed my mom. She burned it without saying a word. Years passed. I tried to forget. I convinced myself it was just some childhood hallucination. Until last week, my daughter came running into the room crying. She said there was a woman in the corner watching her sleep. I froze. My daughter handed me a photo. It was her in bed, and behind her that same pale woman. Only now, closer than ever. Let's turn the page. The house was a steal, which should have been my first clue. It was a handsome two-story colonial set way back from the road, sold as is for a fraction of its market value. The owner, A woman so old her skin looked like crumpled tissue paper had only one strange condition for the sale. She met me on the porch, her grip surprisingly strong on my arm. "The house is yours," she'd rasped, her eyes milky with age. "But heed one warning. The master bedroom. The floorboards are original. They're sensitive. Never ever drop anything heavy up there. Nothing more than a book or a pair of shoes. Promise me." I promised, assuming it was a structural concern she couldn't afford to fix. For 6 months, I lived by her rule. The house was quiet, peaceful even. At night, I would sometimes feel a deep, resonant vibration through the soles of my feet, but I dismissed it as heavy trucks on the distant highway. Occasionally, I'd hear a low, rhythmic sighing sound, so deep it was almost subsonic, like the house breathing around me. I told myself it was just the wind in the eaves. The incident happened on a Tuesday. I was finally unpacking the last of my father's belongings, a heavy banker's box filled with his vinyl record collection. My arms were aching as I carried it up the stairs to the master bedroom, intending to store it in the large walk-in closet. I was halfway across the room when my foot caught on the edge of a rug. The box flew from my grasp, my shout of alarm lost as it landed flat on the floor with a deafening, echoing thump that shook the entire room. For a long moment, there was only a ringing silence. I stood there, catching my breath, annoyed at my own clumsiness. Then, the floor beneath me shifted. It wasn't a creak or a groan of old wood. It was a vibration that started deep, deep below the foundations of the house. From beneath my feet, a sound rumbled upwards, a low, guttural, and profoundly sleepy groan. It was the sound of something colossal being roused from a long slumber. I felt it in my teeth, in the marrow of my bones. The house, my entire world, tilted sharply to the left, sending me stumbling against the wall. There was the sound of nails screeching as they were pulled from wood, of plaster cracking. The floorboards bowed upwards in the center of the room as if pushed from below by a rising knuckle. The rhythmic sighing I'd grown used to at night returned, but it was faster now, deeper. The agitated panting of something immense and ancient. I realized with a surge of ice-water terror that the house wasn't built on the ground. It was built on a back, and I had just jumped on it. The slow tilting began again, a deliberate adjustment, and I knew with sickening certainty that it was starting to wake up. Let's turn the page, but not the lights. My grandmother's house had an old mirror, heavy, antique, with a warped black frame and a faint silver crack running through the middle. She told me, "Never look into it after midnight." I thought she was just superstitious. She grew up believing mirrors could trap souls. I stayed over once when I was 15. Couldn't sleep. I got up to use the bathroom, and on the way back, I passed the mirror. It was 12:13 a.m. I looked. At first, just me, tired, bed-headed, shirt wrinkled. But then my reflection smiled. I didn't. I leaned closer. So did it, but not in sync. Slight delay, like lag. Then it blinked. I didn't. I stepped back, heart pounding. My reflection didn't move. It just stood there, smiling. I ran to my room, slammed the door, turned the lights on. But I couldn't sleep, not with that smile burned into my brain. The next morning, I checked the mirror again. Just normal, just me. My grandmother watched me from the hallway and said softly, "You looked at it, didn't you?" I nodded. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally, "It knows now." I tried to shake it off, went home, moved on. Years passed. I thought it was all in my head, until I moved into my first apartment and unpacked a box of my grandmother's things after she passed away. Inside was the mirror. No note, no warning, just wrapped in a blanket and waiting. I tried to throw it out. The trash company never took it. I dropped it off at a thrift store. They called me a week later asking me to come pick it up. Then one night I had a nightmare. I was standing in a dark hallway, staring at the mirror. My reflection was laughing, silently. Then it mouthed, "Let me in." I woke up sweating. But the worst part? My mirror was no longer wrapped. It was hanging on the wall. I live alone. Since then, things have changed. I see movements behind me in windows, shadows where there should be none. My reflection lags. Sometimes it watches me too closely. Last night, it waved, and I didn't. Another night, another story told. But remember, the dark never runs out of voices. Sleep well, if you can. This is After Dark Digest. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check under the bed.